Perfect. Okay, so thank you all for coming to today's mini workshop, which is on managing your self-talk, that constant egoic chatter that we've got going on in our mind that ruminates and goes round and round and round. And we're going to look at what that self-talk is, where that self-chatter comes from. And we're actually going to do a meditation exercise that will allow us to go in and experience what that's like for ourselves. You know, what the self-talk feels like, what it sounds like. And from there, we'll move on to some strategies that will help us manage and mitigate our own self-talk. If we have some time at the end, I might drop into a bit of spot coaching if you're up for it, but let's just see how the time goes. We've actually got quite a lot to cover in the next hour and 20 minutes. So by way of background, for those of you who don't know me so well, my name's Georgina Hallaby and I'm an executive life coach. My background is actually in corporate, so I've worked in both Asia and Europe, mainly running advertising agencies and software as a service companies. So for me, my jobs have always been quite stressful, and it's always been important for me to balance, you know, that outer success and that need for inner peace. And it's been a constant juggling act. And if you're talking about self-talk, we're very, very, very well acquainted. And so this journey for me of discovering that inner peace has taken me on, you know, over 30 years of meditation, lots of different spiritual journeys of which I'm still, you know, fumbling my way through and discovering so much every day. It took me to a course where I studied Asian spiritual classics. So I deep dived into the foundations of Buddhism, Hinduism, and to a certain extent Taoism. And then, of course, within my own coaching studies, which covered a lot of psychology and neuroscience as well. So what I'll be talking through today is a bit of a mishmash of everything that I've learned. A lot of it is directly on the mat or through applied meditation studies, but also from a psychology point of view that I've learned through my coaching, and which I'm happy to share with you today. Welcome, Patricia. Nice to see you here. Are you okay to put your video on?
Yeah, just, yep.
Perfect. Nice to meet you.
Sorry, it took me a while to figure out how to get on this registration. So
I'm so sorry. It was a learning curve with Eventbrite. So I think next time I'm just going to do it a bit differently. So thank you for your patience. Okay, so we're talking about mind chatter, that self-talk, that dialogue that's always going on and on and on, and it ruminates and it grinds and it goes round and round and round. Any of you who do yoga might be used to the term vritti, right? That vritti, that narrative, that constant grind. And that's what yoga does. It anchors you into your body so that you can switch off that constant talk, that constant narrative. And being in the present and being in your body is really probably one of the most effective ways that you can switch it off. By anchoring yourself in the present, where you're not attaching to the past or the future in any of the stories, you're really just in the moment and switching off that chatter. The other way that people use is often things like drugs, alcohol, any sort of substance abuse that just allows them to switch off. And in fact, the word ecstasy comes from the word ekstasis. It means out of your body. It's that wish to be able to leave your mind and its constant grumbling, its constant judgments, and just switch off. And that's where mindfulness takes you, meditation takes you, yoga takes you. And it's that beautiful space where you don't have that constant mind chatter. So let me give you an example. I want you to look at my hands, right? And see what happens when I go from here all the way over to here. What happened then? Did you have any narrative, or were you just watching non-conceptually, just observing? You were just watching, you were just experiencing it in the moment, and there was quiet. It's actually that easy once you're able to train your mind to start to pay attention without all the constant narrative. And that's what mindfulness does for you. So let's have a look at what those gremlins are, what those self-talks are about. To distill it down to something quite simplistic, it's your ego, right? Your ego is your own understanding of who you are. It's your self-identity. And it needs to know who it is. It needs to have its nice, close, tight walls, and it doesn't like to be challenged. It doesn't like its worldview to be challenged, its idea of self to be challenged. It's all about survival. Everything is a threat to the ego. And the thing about the ego is you've got to have a tremendous amount of respect for it, because it's created this whole reality, this whole idea of who you are. It's incredibly powerful. So we approach it with respect. We approach it with compassion. And today isn't about fighting the ego. It's about understanding it. It's about managing it. It's about working with it. Yeah. So there are two main traits that the ego has that you might recognize. Everything is judgment based. Everything that you see or think, there'll be a judgment that your ego will attach. And it'll either be like, dislike, or meh. You know, and this is where the danger lies. With liking, you have grasping, you have attachment, you have I want more, give me more. With dislike, you have aversion, you have pushing away, you have shunning. Anyone who's got young kids will know this and how traumatic it is, you know, when your children are being pushed away, when you are pushed away, right? So this whole idea of grasping and aversion, like, dislike, or judgment, when we study most of the spiritual classics, is the foundation of all bad things, all wars, all conflict. And it comes from that place in the back of your brain that is all about survival and about threat. Now, the other trait about the ego is it loves stories. It can tell you stories all day. It's the master storyteller. It will look at everything and it will indulge in stories that prop up its own beliefs, right? It's like our own Twitter feed, 24/7. And I don't know if you ever catch yourself halfway through a thought and you're noticing that you're going on and on and on, and it's like you're bolstering yourself up to have an argument with that person. You know, you're justifying yourself, you're justifying your position. So your self-talk is really always about judgment, and it's always about narrative. And when you're able to drop into that space in between without that self-talk, it's beautiful, it's quiet, it's peaceful. And that's what you do when you're able to manage your self-talk. That's what we're after. We're after that perspective and that peace. So if we look at, I guess, the neuroscience behind this and how it works within your brain, just imagine when you're 5 years old, up to 5 years old, right? When you're a baby, you're just downloading. Your brain is like a supercomputer or a sponge, and you're just downloading data. It's not your data. It's data that you get from your caregivers. It's data that you're getting from your parents and their perception of the world. So you understand that this is a glass, that this is a pen and not a chew toy, right? You also understand languages, you understand who they are, their relationship to you, and fundamentally you understand your own idea of yourself. Now that data is downloaded without any filters, right or wrong, directly into your brain, and it gets stored in your basal ganglia at the back, right, which allows us to automate our functions. It allows us to be able to do things like make a cup of tea without having to think about it. And anything as complex as to, you know, when you're in your car and you're singing away to a tune and you're eating a bag of chips, all these things, you don't have to think about it. If you did, you'd veer off the road and crash, right? So being able to download that information and store it in the back of your mind is amazing. It allows us to function. But the trick with that is sometimes the wrong data gets put in, or it gets interpreted by a 5-year-old child or a 3-year-old child that is trying to make sense of the world and doesn't necessarily always understand it. So sometimes our views, our opinions, and the beliefs that we hold are our own misinterpretations, our own judgments upon ourselves. I'll give you a classical example. You know, my dad was a workaholic, absolutely a workaholic, and I couldn't get his attention for love nor money. And then even when he finished work, he would just need to zone out, and there was no distracting him. So somewhere in my own brain, it was a case of my father doesn't love me. If somebody doesn't give me their full attention, it means that I'm somehow unworthy. And my dad, he left when I was 6. He moved halfway across the world. So he had 3 boys and he stayed with them. He was a perfect dad. The scripts that I developed in myself was, you know, I had to prove myself. I had to be as good as a boy. I had to do all of these things, and that fueled a lot of my career. I spent a lot of time trying to prove stuff to who? Of course, it wasn't anything to do with me. My dad didn't leave because of me, had nothing to do with me, but that was data that I downloaded. It was my understanding of the world, and it felt true to me. So those were the views, opinions, and beliefs that are locked in here that I'm operating subconsciously from. And these bubble up in our thoughts through our self-talk. Sometimes it feels like something that's incongruent with our own higher insights. It's because it's locked in. It's stuff that we believe. The other thing that it does is sometimes it's a reflection of somebody else's voice, somebody else's judgments upon us. And often that actually has nothing to do with ourselves. It has more to do with them. So if we've had trauma in our lives or conflicting relationships, if we have the voice that tells us you're stupid, what do you know, you're unworthy, sometimes it's actually the voice of somebody else. And we replay it, and we replay it in our own mind because we've integrated it as a belief, and we've downloaded it and we've not questioned it. Now, when we're about 12 years old, our prefrontal cortex comes online. This is at the front of your brain. And this is the space of your brain that allows discernment. It allows pure consciousness. It allows insight. It's your humanity capacity. And it allows us to consciously assess and evolve, to critically look at the programs and patterns that we're running and go, are these constructive or destructive? Do I want them or don't I want them? How do these fit in with my personal conscious values and the way that I want to prioritize my life? And from there, we can actually start to look at changing our programs and patterns. But the first step in that is awareness. Awareness of your self-talk. And that's what we're going to do now. We're going to do a little exercise, a meditation exercise to create that awareness. But let me just stop and ask, does anybody have any questions at this point? No? Okay, brilliant. All right, so how do we do this? We use introspective awareness, okay? We become psychonauts, right? Because man has traveled to the moon. He's charted all the seas. He's gone to amazing places, but one of the few places that he hasn't really gone to is the space of the mind. Okay, so look at science. Science is still trying to work out how the mind connects to the brain, because they're two different things, and there's no hard scientific evidence out there that maps the connection to the two, other than the fact that the mind has a direct impact on how the brain works, the size of the brain, growth of different parts of the brain. Nobody knows it. So where do we go to get that introspective awareness and that insight? Well, we go to the master meditators. We go to the people who have made it their life duty to study what's happening within the brain. And you look at master meditators and monks, they can actually slow down. You know, if I click my fingers, that's 64 frames of perception, and they can slow each one down and look at it analytically. Time is conceptual. So that's where we go. And I'm going to be sharing some of their techniques with you to help us look at our own thoughts. I am nowhere near this. I still feel very much on the cusp of my own journey, but it's my pleasure to teach you what I've learned. So what we're going to look at is we're going to watch our thoughts as they bubble up, as they arise, as they abide, and then as they dissolve. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at them objectively. We're going to look at them non-conceptually, like this. We're just going to watch them. So I want you to imagine you're on the beach, and you're there and you're watching the parade of content in front of you, okay? So you might see a woman in a red dress, you might see a man with a dog, and instead of the narrative that says, oh, that's such a cute dog, oh, I love my dog, oh, I haven't taken my dog for a walk, I haven't given her a worming tablet, and allowing that, indulging that narrative to happen, notice, man, dog, just notice, okay? The other thing that we're going to do is we're not going to grasp to it. We're not going to wish it to stay or go. We're just going to notice woman, red dress, man, dog. So we're going to watch our thoughts as they arise, abide, and dissolve. The second part, and I'll talk you all through this, the second part is we're going to look at the subjective appearance of our thoughts. What does that mean? That means our emotional response to them. What happens when these thoughts arise, abide, and dissolve? How do we judge them? Positive, negative, or neutral? And what, if anything, arises in our body in terms of emotional effect? And we're going to look at that, just look at that, without indulging. We're just going to notice, yeah? And then after that, what we'll do is we'll share, because I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I think one of the things that you'll find, a bit of a spoiler here, once you've done this is, seriously, once you start looking at the content in your mind, move over Netflix. It's fascinating. So I'm going to invite you to get comfortable, and I'm going to lead us into a meditation with a bit of a relaxation exercise beforehand. And close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. Make sure that your spine is stacked straight. And then just take a couple of deep breaths. And appreciate this time, space, intention that you're giving yourself for your own happiness and your own well-being. And I want you to notice, first of all, the weight of your body upon your sit bones, a comfortable heaviness, and feel your feet upon the floor, allowing you to earth, anchoring you in to the here and now. And take a couple of deep breaths all the way into your abdomen. Notice your abdomen rising on the in-breath, collapsing on the out-breath. Take a moment to just notice the state of your body. And we're going to focus on our 5 senses now as we gradually draw in our attention into our body and then into our minds. So notice first of all what sounds you can hear. Are they different in the foreground? Different in the background? There will always be sounds in our meditation practice. Just allow them. Don't resist them, just notice them and turn your mind back. And notice what you can smell. What can you taste? Is your sense of taste connected to your sense of smell? And does it change on the in-breath and the out-breath? Notice the tactile sensations of your arms as they come into contact with the fabric of your chair or your body. What does that feel like? Where else does your body come in contact with itself? Put your attention there. Lip on lip, teeth on teeth, eyelids. And we slowly turn our attention now to our mind. This is the space of the mind where thoughts arise, abide, and dissolve. And we're going to watch those thoughts, much like a parade of content in front of us. We're going to start by looking at the content without judgment, without grasping. without narrative. Just watch. Just notice your thoughts. And if you notice yourself indulging in the stories, just congratulate your awareness for picking that up. Come back to center and just notice without grasping or indulging. The next thing that we're going to look at is the subjective appearance of our thoughts. So what happens when those thoughts arise, abide, and dissolve in terms of our own response? How do we judge it? What emotional response occurs? Just notice your emotional response without attaching to it. Just watch. Are you judging? When you judge, do you use the word I? Or do you judge the thoughts? Next, what I'd like you to do is I want you to watch the space between your thoughts. Put the focus of your attention actually on the gaps and see what you notice. Okay, I want you to slowly bring your awareness back into your body. Wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your nose if you like. And in your own time, slowly come back into the room. And I'd love to hear what you noticed, both in terms of what your mind attends to, what were your thoughts? And then what was your emotional response? And also finally, what the quality of the gaps were like for you. So shall we go around from my screen? Alex, do you want to go first?
Yes, I can go first. I guess my mind started off very much in the present moment, what was going on in the other rooms of my house. What is my husband doing? Is my son doing his homework? All these very day-to-day things. And emotionally, I guess it went from, a stress quality to then when I tried to kind of back away with it, I kind of felt a lot of love. There's a very emotional, positive response. And that as I continued in the exercise, I found the gaps in what I was thinking got bigger and bigger. So that's about it.
Amazing. There's a couple of things that come up for me when you say that is when our mind starts noticing certain things, or our mind attends to certain things. One of the techniques that we use in meditation is that we lump them into categories. So yours would be, have tos. Your mind will be, oh, my have tos, my work, food, TV, kids, and that way, once we lump them into categories, we can start noticing the various areas that our mind attends to the most. But I also acknowledge once you were able to drop all of the have tos, your mind was in the space of presence, which allowed your heart to open much more and to feel the love. So that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Jaspreet?
Yeah, so interestingly, I'm at a coffee place which has visited possibly mentioned a lot of distractions. There's the smell of freshly brewed coffee, there's breakfast being made, and obviously a little bit of chitter chatter among people sitting here. So, uh, a bit of a background, I did meditate this morning, so I've kind of finished my 45 minutes meditation that I do every morning. So I was able to just zone out quickly. I did smell the coffee. It's also because I have a coffee cup right in my nose, sitting on my table, which I was drinking. And yeah, I think I'm just I think I feel privileged that I can zone out these things, just zone out the chitter chatter, zone out people talking and things like that. But I think what I experienced was more from a smell perspective. So I did smell the freshly brewed coffee. I did smell the eggs that were being made, and it calms me down. It's not a question of me being a caffeine addict or something like that. It's just familiar smells that I resonate with myself being in a happy place. So the smell of eggs or the smell of coffee just takes me to a very very comfortable position where I am absolutely zoned out and I'm just very comfortable with myself. So I may have seemed a little jittery on video, but that's just because I was getting a little conscious of what people were staring me down. But honestly, I was thinking of absolutely nothing. My mind was completely blank, and it was just a moment of nothingness.
Thank you for sharing, Jaspreet. And it's so funny, isn't it? Because your sense of smell is probably one of the fastest emotional triggers there is. Your sense of smell allows you to access so much that you're not even aware of. It's one of the most direct routes for emotional association. Yeah, thank you. Patricia, oh, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always resonate sense of smell, especially with things like lavender or basil or one of these essential oils. And when they say that all of these essential oils and the smells have very different effect on your mind, I kind of am a testament to that because I really believe that. So the combination of what I'm spelling right now just takes me back to a very very comfortable spot. I mean, breakfast for me is a very very chill out, very homely affair. So that's my, that's my safe space, as I can call it that, because that's usually at home. So yeah, it was just those combination of those smells that just calmed me down. And as I was telling you, I've been up since 1 on calls doing work. So the smell really helped me kind of center myself in that sense.
You deserve that coffee, and great awareness, great awareness. Patricia, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the beginning of the exercise, it reminded me of, I tried to do there's an exercise that, the leaf comes and goes by, right? So I forget what it's called, but I do that, it's basically where the thought you acknowledge and it floats by, flies by like the leaves, right? So I try to do that usually like when I'm trying to sleep or something like that, or when I realize there's too much. And so I think I was that, your analogy of the person walking and then acknowledging, moving on is something that I've tried in the past. I think I have struggled with staying with my eyes closed. I definitely heard the rain outside and other things going on. And I find it harder to, find the gaps with my eyes closed than actually for me having my eyes open, right? And so at one point I had to just turn my head and look outside of the rain flowing down, and then I could obtain some gaps, right? So I'm not a big meditator. I've tried on and off throughout the time, and I guess I meditate in moments, but not in long blocks, I guess, is what I try. And so that's where I was wondering. So then it got my mind thinking around, where does, this is a long exercise. That's great when you have that time, but how will that incorporate into the normal life of, it's self-talk, and where it's in the midst of everything, not in the moment where you can sit quietly, close your eyes and observe, right? So those were the thoughts in my mind, was thinking about the exercise after I got everything else out of my mind of, it's raining, how am I going to have to walk to Pilates in the rain? I got that out quite quickly, but then I started going into the exercise thoughts itself.
Yeah, I'm hearing you being very, very present within the exercise. And I'm also hearing a certain amount of narrative with the I'm not a good meditator, and the judgment within that. I think you looking out at the rain to notice the gaps is amazing. I think so many people have this preconceived idea about meditation. And for me, whatever works for you that allows you to look into your own mind and connect into your own wisdom is meditation. Right. Or even...
I think that's a better way to say it, is I don't meditate in the traditional way. I don't respond as well in meditating some of the traditional ways of being, I do have those moments, but I can't do those always, right? So
I fully acknowledge you, Patricia, for giving this a go and staying with it. Yeah. And meditation can be as long as one breath cycle or as short as one breath cycle. Yeah, amazing. Yannick, what about you?
So this built on to my 45 minutes or so that I do daily. And so what I noticed more so was how things just slowed down for me as we're going sort of deeper and deeper. And the two things that kept popping up were either related to friendships or work. So, yeah.
And what emotional response, if any, did you have with those?
You know what? I've some of it was some of the work stuff was a bit stress, but otherwise it was mostly just like observing as things popped up and then sort of like vanished.
Great observation. And what did you notice about the quality of the gaps?
The best way that just calming would be, yeah. So just like lots of space and just kind of not as go as I feel that things have been for me for a couple months now.
The Buddhists call that space in between, and the quality of it, calm, CALM, calm abiding, and it's categorized by clarity and luminescence and peace, because it's non-conceptual. You're not attaching to the thoughts. It's that consciousness, that pure, unadulterated consciousness that's behind it. Yeah. Thank you. Maria?
Hello. I felt more body sensations during this meditation. I was noticing that I started yawning, and I was like, oh, this is new. Like in my meditations, I'm suddenly yawning, and I'm like, oh, so the judgment was I was being rude as I was yawning. So it was like trying to hold it back. And then the yawning shifted to, I felt a little like tingling here and a little bit tingling at the back of my head. And then right at the end, I felt this really like someone was blowing on my face right here. Like this cool air was just for a second or two, like, and so it was about my body today.
Really good. Yeah. So just asking, has anyone experiencing any completely random thoughts? You know, yellow ducks popping up, spaceships, just random? No?
Yeah. Define how random do you want the thoughts to be?
Well, I mean, when I watch my own thoughts, because I'm always using awareness, I'm like, where on earth did this thought come from? You know, my husband did it recently as well, and I was like, what did you get? It's like yellow ducks, plastic ducks. I'm like, okay, you know, it's wonderful. Anyway, that's also a look into my mind. Never a dull moment. Joy, how about you?
Hey. So when I first started, I was thinking a lot about my to-dos for the day. So it got a bit kind of stressful as well. And then kind of this executive functioning of my brain started saying, like, you don't have to think about that right now because everything is in order. So, and after that, like, I kind of put those thoughts into kind of different categories. And I started to really, calm down and kind of observe, like, kind of what's my surrounding, the senses. And then I realized actually my kind of heartbeat got slower, because like previously when I was thinking about other things, it was just kind of as per normal. But then after I have no thoughts, or I'm just kind of quietly observing what's going on, then kind of I feel like kind of my heartbeat also become a little bit slower and calmer because of that. And then I actually like do prayers every day. So it's kind of like, I think like doing prayers, I also do like self-talk, or like you kind of think about things. But kind of in this meditation exercise that we did, I actually, like, instead of like having a lot of thoughts afterwards, I kind of flash back on some of the kind of moments where like with friends, like haven't seen for a long time, like those kind of moments. And it was actually quite real in that sense. It almost like time travel back to those moments. Yeah, so a lot happened during this exercise.
Yeah, great awareness also about your heart slowing down and the way your mind was going at first. When you were transported to those moments with your friends, what happened with your awareness? What was the commentary around that?
I think like it was just very like I can feel the emotions arising from seeing my friends. Yeah, and it's also like something that like it's not like kind of a real event, but it's a kind of flashing back to, okay, those events that have already happened in the past, but I'm just revisiting them, like kind of as a third person. Yeah, so it's kind of like a kind of distant view.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. It's incredible because your mind doesn't actually know the difference between what's real happening out there and what it's thinking. So, you know, just the thought of the story can create that physiological response in you. And, you know, when you daydream and you wake up halfway through a daydream, it really makes, I don't know about you guys, but it makes you question your reality. Oh my God.
Yeah, definitely. Like even night dreams too.
Yeah. Yeah, you know that very, very wise song, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Life is but a dream. Yeah. Who knows? Okay, so I find that when I do this meditation, it's like shining a light on a floor at nighttime with loads and loads of cockroaches that are thoughts, you know, milling around. And as soon as I shine the light of my attention, they all just flock away. They all hide. So when I'm like, okay, thoughts, come on, arise, abide, and dissolve, I just have nothing but quiet. And so for me, all of it is a gap exercise. And I love it because for me, it's just a way to drop into peace. So what I do is I try and take this discipline of noticing my thoughts and my own emotional response out into the world. And this is the challenge that I'm going to be asking all of you moving forward, is to notice your thoughts in everyday life. Notice when those gremlins chatter. Watch how they arise. Just watch them as they abide and allow them to dissolve. So thank you for doing that exercise. It was all really about creating awareness. And when we have that awareness, we can start to notice the patterns and ask the questions. You know, what are my patterns? What are the views, opinions, and beliefs that I've been subconsciously holding? How are they serving me? Are they constructive? Are they destructive? In what ways do they align with my more conscientious values or the priorities that I want in my life? And what, if anything, should I do to change them? So it starts with that awareness. And from there, we can build in the strategies to manage and to mitigate. So there are two strategies that I'm going to share with you today. And the first one is just that. It starts from that objective awareness. And it's a Buddhist approach. They call it the beautiful monsters. Know your beautiful monsters, right? Those monsters could be your gremlins. They could be things like self-doubt, lack of self-worth, right? The voices that say you're stupid, you're not worth it. Those gremlins, right? Those are your beautiful monsters. And all we do is we just watch our self-talk. Just notice when it happens, okay? And the trick is not to identify with it. Because our natural approach is to go, I am stupid. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm an imposter. And then from there, the story goes on. Well, you know, it's no surprise. I've always been like this since I was younger. You know, my older sister used to do, and then it goes on. It's all about indulging with the I. And instead of doing that, we just say, self-talk is happening. Anxiety is happening. Self-doubt is happening. We don't identify. The other thing that we do is we don't indulge in the narrative. We notice the narrative and we're like, you again. Yep, come on. Self-talk is happening. We don't suppress it because what we repress comes back in spades. What's that expression? What we resist persists. Doesn't work. And the other thing is, don't try and solve it. Don't try and fix it. Because what are you fixing? You're fixing your own narrative, right? Notice it in the moment and then take the time to look into it properly, right? So beautiful monsters, don't indulge, don't identify, don't suppress, and don't try and fix. And there's a lovely story that I want to share, a beautiful metaphor that will help you in the moment maybe remember that. And this is something that my teacher taught me. So we're all blue sky, a beautiful blue sky, and we're limitless, right? Patricia's looking out at the rain and going, oh, I remember blue sky. I wish we had more of it now. So beautiful blue sky, that is your consciousness, okay? But we identify with our clouds. Clouds, they come and go. across our consciousness. Anxiety, anger, self-worth, doubts, fear, they just arise, they float by. We spend our lives thinking we are those clouds. We're not. We're the consciousness behind that is aware of those clouds. So whenever you're in the moment and you're caught up in your own narrative, your own I-ness, this whole idea of self-identity, those clouds, those ego thoughts, just remember you're the consciousness behind. You're the big, beautiful blue sky. You're not your clouds. You're not your thoughts. You're not your emotions. Your emotions, by the way, are just your interface between your thoughts and your body. They're just the way of telling you, like a data transfer, telling you to call your attention to something. Notice the data, let it come through, acknowledge it, and let it be on its way, without the gremlins jumping on it and telling a whole story about how stupid you are, how worthless you are, how whatever it is. It's not necessary. Data received, thank you. You can drift off now. So that's the first one. Don't identify, don't feed your gremlins. Just notice them, right? The second one is insight analysis. So we're starting to notice our patterns. We're starting to notice, interesting. My mind keeps attending to this. I keep on, like the other day I noticed something bubble up in me that said, you're lazy because I took a day off. You're lazy. And I'm like, where the hell did that come? That's a new one for me, because I don't think I am lazy. But just noticing, that's interesting. That is triggering me. I'm going to go in and find out more, but I'm not going to do it in the moment. I'm going to put it aside and I'm going to come back to it. And I'm going to put my prefrontal cortex, I'm going to put my conscious mind on it without indulging in the story, because I want to see what's behind it. I want to go digging below what's conscious, using my, and dig into the subconsciousness. And I want to do that in a really, really mindful way. And there's lots of different ways that we can do that. I mean, as coaches, we love coaching. We go in and we look at that. We dig deeper, we ask questions. But there's also mindfulness. There's also meditation. There's also therapy. These are all the different techniques that we use to look at, okay, this is arising. Where does it come from? Where from my childhood did that belief start? Where from my own experience of their world did those thoughts come from? And from there we can start to analyze, we can assess, and we can reframe. And sometimes just by understanding where it comes from and rewiring those beliefs and going, I was a kid, what did I know? I completely get it. We're able to release those thoughts. Sometimes you're able, just by understanding it, to drop them completely. Other times there'll be gremlins that we just keep on having. But the difference is every single time they arise, we're like, you don't have that power over me. I understand now. And we constantly train our mind to not indulge with them. It's just our ego talking. It's trying to keep that idea of us locked and fixed and safe and solid and permanent. This idea of who we are. And that comes from a place of survival and fear and childhood protectiveness. Rather than this expansive soul, right? This humanity that we've got in our minds where we can look at it and go, actually, I could be anything that I want to be, which is scary as hell for the ego. That's free falling, I'm not who I say I am. Who am I? Yikes. But you're anything that you want to be, right? Not only are you anything that you want to be, but if you think about it, your mind creates your perception of your world. When you start to change your mind, you change your whole world. It's incredibly powerful, right? So it starts by looking into, noticing your patterns, and then using insight analysis to look at what's behind it, to reframe it, and to rewrite your scripts, rewrite your destiny, rewrite your behaviors. And that starts from understanding. So it's 8:30 now. We've got another half hour. I think we've got time for a little bit of spot coaching where we can actually have a look at some of those insights, right? What's coming up for you? And we could dig a bit deeper and we could try and reframe, release, and recreate new scripts, positive new scripts. Is anyone up for that? Do I have any volunteers? Nobody? Don't be shy. Is there a little voice inside you going, oh, what's it saying right now? Don't pick on me, don't pick on me. Or is it, I really want to, but I don't want to be selfish? What's coming up? Okay. Okay, Maria and Patricia. Okay.
Well, I just had a question,
Okay.
not, which was, your theory or what you were suggesting is that, we acknowledge but don't kind of, be aware of what's that, but not really kind of think about where that voice comes from or all of that. There's other individuals that say, you have multiple different voices, and these are either different parts or people or whatever that come in your mind, and some that you should keep and some that you should, get rid of at times. So I guess do you believe that all of these thoughts really just, you just let it go? Or, I guess I've been trying to do some work to understand kind of where, who are these different people talking to me, and what is good for me, what is bad for me, and how do I like evict some of these, people in my mind or change that area. So I guess the question is, am I misunderstanding? Because what I'm hearing is that hear the voice and acknowledge it and just let it go, but never really address or deal with those, and so I guess the point is at what point does it not come back if you're just letting it go each time?
I love that thought. Thank you, that question. Thank you so much for raising it, because it's a really, really great question. So allow me to clarify. When you're in a conversation with someone or you're out there in daily life and your gremlins come up and they say things like, you're an imposter, what do you know? Don't engage with it straight away. Just notice that they're thoughts that are happening and don't indulge in their story, right? Don't give them that power. Just notice and start to notice your patterns, right? And then it's all about intentionality. When you have the time and the focus to go in and address them, then go in and address them. And I do a lot of work with parts integration. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the stuff that I do is aligning conflicting parts in your mind, right? And that could be calling them out. So for example, I will do a session with somebody where we will have procrastination sitting down, yeah, or imposter syndrome, right? And we actually go in and all of these different parts feel real. And by being able to name them and call them out and talk to them, it allows us to highlight the competing agendas that we've got going on in our mind, right? That are sabotaging us, pulling us two different ways. And all of these different parts have a positive intention for you. And we're not trying to evict any of them, right? Because all of them are incredibly powerful, incredibly powerful. Procrastination can stop you from doing everything, when really often what it wants is to protect you. It wants to protect you from going out and failing and then recreating your own idea of not being worthy, right? Incredibly beneficial intention. So what we do in parts therapy is that we call this out and we go, okay, great. Everybody's got this amazing intention for me. Okay. How do we align all of them? How do we use and channel all of that energy so that I can then move forward? And so it's really about mapping the different parts of your brain to each other and allowing them to create their own solutions. So to me, that's all about reframing.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Releasing. Yeah. So to go back to your question, it's about intentionality. And what I'm trying to do is stop people being triggered, stop us being triggered in the moment by our negative thoughts, to notice them as they happen without getting sucked into a vortex of reactivity, right?
Got it.
Because yeah,
and that's trying to look not just negative, but holistic talk, right? Because negative is one thing, but really managing the full spectrum is what's important, right? So
yeah, exactly. If you're able to notice all of your self-talk, that's amazing. And what we do, or what I certainly teach with my mindfulness classes, is it's really about training awareness. Now, awareness is different from attention. Attention is what your mind is focused on right now. Whereas your awareness is like a, what do you call a scanner, right? It will scan the environment for things that are threats all the time, right? But it will also scan things that you have consciously said, I want to look out for, right? Things that align to me, things that threaten me, things that appeal to me, which is why, you know, when you go out and you've got a red car, suddenly everybody has a red car, because your awareness is starting to notice it. So in this way, we're creating scripts for our awareness to say, I want you to pick up any negative self-talk, and I want you to call my attention to it so that I notice when it happens. And I'm not going to indulge, I'm not going to attach. That way, otherwise we're having to be conscious of all of our thoughts all the time. We'd be draining our battery of our prefrontal cortex, and we'd be like zombies all the time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Joy.
Yeah, so I think maybe this is related to self-talk. Like I sometimes, not so much in the moment, because I would think about, okay, what happened in the past, kind of ruminate on, conversations, like comments I got from people, or I like tend to like think about the future too much, which is, okay, like then what do I need to say next to avoid those mistakes that I have? Like I think this happens quite a lot in conversations where when people say something, maybe like I only hear the first part, because after that I start to think about, okay, how should I respond to that first part? But I completely didn't hear the second part. Yeah, so I think that kind of self-talk sometimes like prevent me from actually hearing from people talk sometimes, where I'm just like in my head, like thinking about, okay, like how do I respond to like what happened in the past, what happened, like what's gonna happen in the future. Yeah, instead of just, kind of letting kind of things happen first and then react. Does that make sense?
I can completely 3000% relate to that. I catch myself doing that, preparing what to say next, or thinking things through, and I'm switching off and not being able to absorb anything that's happening. Yeah, great awareness. And it's something certainly that I as a coach had to get over, because you need to be 100% in the moment for your clients and active listening, which means there's something that needs to be looked into, right? This need to prepare, right? Or to constantly think.
Yeah.
What do you think is behind that, Joy?
Yeah, I think like I do have a kind of high standard of myself, so I want to make sure that what I say like is trying to be perfect. So I do exactly put a lot of emphasis on preparing, so that sometimes when you prepare, you're in your own zone. So instead of actually understanding everything that's going on before preparing. Yeah.
Thank you. So in order for you to be perfect in what you say to other people, what must you be believing about yourself?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
So for you to be perfect and to have to practice everything to deliver it perfectly for other people,
Yeah.
what must you be believing about yourself?
Yeah, maybe I need to believe that I don't have to be perfect. Yeah.
So let me just check in with you here, right? The fact that you've got something in your mind saying, get this right,
Yeah.
because it has to be perfect. What are you frightened of if it's not perfect?
Like not being able to convey what I want to convey at that moment of time. Yeah.
And what's so important for you to convey what you want to convey?
That's a good question. I never thought about that. I think like at work, right? I mean, there's meetings with clients internally. You have to persuade people to do something, and you do want to make sure that kind of the message you have prepared need to come across in that limited amount of time that we have during that meeting. So I think there's some kind of like interest at stake, but like also with friends, then I think sometimes I just wanted to help. Like,
say that again. Sometimes you want to.
I want to be able to help them, so that like I think I want to, you know, be of some value to other people. So sometimes I may like jump to kind of, oh, my problem solving mind really quickly before even understanding that problem fully. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm hearing, Joy, that you want to help people, that you like fixing problems, and that your mind automatically jumps in and starts solving the problems to help them or your clients, rather than being present and absorbing. I still think there's something there that I want to dig a little deeper. Are you okay if I?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah?
Yes.
And Maria, are you okay if I dig in a little deeper into this? Okay. So why do you have to solve problems for your friends?
Yeah, because I care about them. Yeah. I guess sometimes I do have the tendency of taking on things that I don't necessarily, I guess fundamentally I'm maybe because I do like to have a sense of control of things that's going on in my life, which also include like not necessarily controlling my friends, also like be of like help to them, like being of value to them, which means that, oh, like sharing my perspective, like sharing like potential solutions, which they may not necessarily adopt, which is okay, but then I want to be able to, you know, share that with them.
So I'm hearing that you want to be able to share your solutions to help your friends, and that for you, maybe solving their problems is a way of showing that you care.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So have you always had that pattern in your life?
Yeah.
Where do you think that came from?
No, I feel like I'm just I guess I'm easily emotionally perceptive, so that like I don't feel very well when my friends don't feel very well. So, and I think that like kind of growing up like, in my family, I also, you know, went through like full spectrum of emotions. So I think I learned to be there, like support people. Yeah, like when they need, but also I think on the flip side, sometimes I may take on things that are like unnecessarily like kind of emotional things that I need to take on. Like that, I get that affect me a bit. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing as well. So what role, if any, does control play in this?
What role does control play? Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess like growing up, like I always like kind of feel that I have a sense of control. At least like for example, if you study, like you put hard work, like you get grades. So I think that's kind of how like my world operates. And I think now like kind of start working, like I think I learned to like accept that like sometimes you may not necessarily control everything that's happening, despite your best efforts. So it's like, for example, if I see my friends suffering and that I already gave them advice that I think they will help them, but if they don't take it, I do feel like sad about it. Yeah, because I think like it's like kind of you really want to do something, and that you think that if they give it a try, maybe it helps, or maybe not, right? But like they should give it a try. But if they don't, like you feel like I'll feel a bit sad about it. Also, like I think sad because like I mean they are going through this, but also like um they could have got better. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to acknowledge your empathy, Joy, but also I want to call out some beliefs that you're carrying.
Okay.
I'm not going to call them out, but I want to help you surface them.
Okay.
Okay. Let's go to that moment where you're trying to help a friend out, right? Be there in the moment. We're going to watch these thoughts as they arise, abide, and dissolve, right? Your friend has told you a problem, and you're off in your mind. You're thinking things through, right? Trying to fix it. What is going on in your mind? If you were to break it down, really break it down as to why you're trying to fix it. Why within you? What's your need that you're addressing when you're trying to fix their problem?
Yeah, I want them to be happy. I don't want to see them suffering, like kind of willingly or unwillingly. Yeah.
So that's what you want, but what need is there behind that need to keep your friends happy? Why is it so important to you? Why is not letting them be sad, stuck, important to you?
Yeah, because I feel like if they are not happy, like I feel like there may be something wrong with me.
Yeah. And what's that gremlin saying is wrong with you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think kind of I have this voice like I'm trying to I'm criticizing myself when someone is suffering.
And what does it say?
Yeah, it just says I'm not a good person.
Could you repeat that, Joy?
Yeah, it just says that I'm not a good person.
I'm not a good person. Is that true?
Not necessarily.
Where does that belief come from?
I actually don't know.
Can you remember the first time you thought, I'm not a good person?
I think there are times growing up, like I wanted to be there more for my family, but then I wasn't able to because I was a kid. And then I felt like I need to be stronger. I need to be, taking on more responsibility. That's always kind of a theme growing up, which is, yeah, I think I need to be more responsible for not just happening in me, but also kind of people around me as well. Which sometimes like I really cannot, right? Like, but then I do like let that affect me, still emotionally.
I want to thank you for being so open and sharing that with us, Joy. So I'm hearing I need to be more responsible, you know, and I don't like seeing all the suffering in my family. As a child, you felt helpless, but you want to take on what you can. In what way has that been impacting you throughout your life?
I think like it's like the power of my emotion is so strong, like kind of the power of this emotional perception to the extent of I think sometimes when I know that I cannot help my friends to solve their problems, I will actually withdraw from this friendship, like completely, because I just don't wanna, like, I feel so helpless, you know, like kind of that remind me of kind of what I experiencing, like when I was young. Yeah, but then I also cannot accept the fact that sometimes my friends need, which like I started to realize that like sometimes your friends may not necessarily need your active involvement. They just need like a listening ear to listen. You don't have to actively think about solutions for them. Yeah.
Do you expect your friends to solve all your problems for you?
No.
Why is that?
Yeah, I just don't expect them to. Yeah. But like I also like do like kind of care a lot about friends who do, you know, try to actively help me, because like I know how hard it is. Yeah.
Joy, I'm seeing a tremendous amount of love and a tremendous amount of empathy, and somewhere a little girl is trying to help, and that little girl is still trying to help, and it's impacting her life. And I have a feeling this is quite a big subject, and I would love to take it offline with you. Let's have a separate session, and let's try and uncover this for you, reframe this. I think you've touched on something really powerful, and I just want to acknowledge you for sharing that with us. And I want to acknowledge all of you for holding the space as well. Thank you so much. Yeah. So I'm conscious of the time, and really just in wrapping this up, before we go around and maybe just share one insight that we've learned. Although I've just noticed I've done something and I've laid the foundation for you, Joy, to think about the answer rather than being present, which is what I would do too, is to really just to invite you all to be a psychonaut in your own lives, right? To start looking into your own mind and start noticing your patterns as they arise, abide, and dissolve without indulging in them, right? Just notice them. And then to apply that consciousness to look at how they serve you, and if they're thoughts, patterns, and behaviors you consciously want to adopt or you want to reframe them. I also want to invite all of you, if you haven't coached with me already, I'm going to drop my booking link in the chat group now. Arrange a session. I would love to go through any insights that you've had or things that have come up and just do a complete deep dive. I'll put aside 90 minutes. There's no cost to this. I'm not going to haggle you at the end for sales. I want to serve. I want to serve powerfully. If you love it, tell all your friends about it. If you want to find out more about coaching with me, we can discuss that at a separate time out there. But really what I want to do is I want to get to the bottom of this iceberg that we're going to start uncovering, start chipping away at what's happening in your subconscious. and allow you to reframe and release all of those gremlins, all of those self-talks that have been holding you back, that don't serve a constructive purpose, that made sense when you made them at the time, but aren't serving a constructive purpose in your life. So on that note, I'll quickly drop this in the chat now before I forget. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to go and do that again. I went and copied and pasted the link to the event because so many of you had problems getting in. All right. Did that come through? Everyone can see it?
Yeah.
I'll give you a second just to copy and paste it or to open that up in your browser. And I'll also send through a video as well afterwards. So I'll send this link to them. Okay. Can we just quickly go around and very quickly share just one key insight that you've had about yourself in this session? Joy, should we start with you?
Okay, there's a lot of insights. Yeah, but I think I learned quite deeply about myself, where like kind of a lot of my emotions were like coming from, I think, kind of that really surface, yeah, a bit on kind of my need to help, I need to control, and yeah, and how I let this affect me.
Thank you. Maria?
Oh, just grateful for this time. I don't have any specific insights. I'm just really grateful to you, Georgie, for being so generous. And I'm learning a lot, and I've started practicing my meditation for an hour a day, so I'm going to keep doing that.
That's amazing. Thank you, Maria, and thank you for supporting me at all my events. It's amazing.
Love it. Thank you.
Jaspreet?
I honestly enjoyed it. The buzz of coffee that I have here right now and just made me a little bit more alert. Sorry, I didn't do the meditation, but that was just maybe very relaxed. I think one thing that I have a key takeaway is for you, Jai. You should know you're not alone in this, and I can say that because I'm probably 100% like you, and it's taken a lot of willpower from myself from within to kind of get into that zone where you're not where you're not in that condition of feeling cold towards people, but you know where to draw the line that it doesn't come back to hurt you like it did. So I feel you completely. I was actually chatting with Georgina on the side saying she's exactly like me. So don't feel bad. You're not alone. You're not unique. A lot of people are like you, but there is hope for people like us. Trust me. If I'm smiling like this and I can talk about this, I can tell you that yeah, there's always a bright side to it. And have a chat with Georgina. I'm sure you'll be there.
Thank you for calling out our common humanity, Jaspreet. And I also noticed this, have a chat with Georgina and the 3 fingers pointing this way. So if this is an issue with you, Jaspreet, will you please book a session in with me and let's go down to what was underlying your views, opinions and beliefs.
Sure,
Supporting
sure.
the same dialogue.
Yeah, sure.
Right. Thank you. Yannick?
No, like for me, it's just a reminder of how important it is to be mindful of your thoughts and just to like observe them, not to let them trigger you. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Alex?
Sorry. It's funny, you actually said something earlier. You made a comment about procrastination and how it protects you from failure. And I have not been able to let go of that since you said it, because I think that's my iceberg right there. And, you know, all the questions you were asking Joy and how you were, you know, kind of digging deep, I was sort of asking similar questions to myself at the same time with respect to procrastination. And it's really fascinating when you start thinking about, where does this come from? How long have I been feeling this way? And yeah, I'm looking forward to going a little further with this.
That's amazing. Procrastination is something that always seems to come up for a lot of my clients, which is amazing because everything that comes up is a universal mirror. So I'm looking in my own life and going, okay, thanks, universe. But there's some really interesting techniques. Patricia talked about parts integration as well. And I love doing that with procrastination and understanding and aligning, you know, how it's trying to protect you. So yeah, let's try that as well. That would be brilliant. Yeah. Thank you. Patricia?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of little insights throughout this. I mean, but for my own piece, it's helped me realize that, I mean, I've been on a journey recently to kind of, you know, for overall a self-aware, improvement. And my strong focus has been more on the awareness piece. And so it's good to recognize that I guess I've been, I've made some breakthroughs, but I guess I realize now where I am in my journey of, you know, I'm still trying to identify, you know, some of the underlying beliefs and where some of these come from, and then how to, I think you said, you know, with like, but how I've been looking at it is how do I get, manage these voices, you know, kind of like I would manage a team, but in my head, right? So, and that's what I've been somewhat thinking about, but I think one of the areas that I need to look at is some of those underlying belief systems that are there and whether they're true or not and things like that anymore in my life, right? So.
Yeah. Can I just lean into something that you said there? Like when you talk about managing a team, it implies control.
I don't think managing a team within managing a team, growing a team or getting the right, you know, cohesiveness. So I guess when people think manage was in control, but I don't know. I as myself don't think of manage in that fashion. So, but yes, I understand. But there probably is a sense of control of wanting to control all the voices. So.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. And I want to acknowledge each and every one of you for spending the time on yet another Zoom call and for putting your attention and your awareness on me and on yourselves for the last 90 minutes. And really want to thank you. I'm going to be running more workshops. I'm committing to do it every month because I love it, and it's a great way of connecting with you all. And so thank you ever so much. Please stay in touch, reach out, let's have a session. And once again, well done and thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Georgie. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.